Hi, everyone. This is Help Me Be Me. This is an episode I'm calling Working with Losing and Feeling Low. This is for anyone who's feeling less than, or maybe you didn't win at something, or maybe you lost something. Um, and I mean, this is a variety of different situations I'm describing. It could also be just a big change, a shift in your life. Like there are two conflicting priorities that occur, and therefore you are shedding some part of yourself that feels like a loss. I'm going to start with a few stoicism thoughts, quotes that I thought were kind of interesting related to this. Being bothered by something is choosing to invest in a specific interpretation and is not the reality of the content. All interpretations are optional. If you are wishing to improve, you have to be content with the thought of foolishness and looking stupid. That was not exactly the way that was worded, but close enough. The greatest remedy for anger is delay. Any person capable of angering you becomes your master. A quarrel is quickly settled when deserted by one party. There is no battle unless there be two. So I'm talking about all sorts of different types of situations, but the net of it is we have so much power and autonomy if we can just make that our goal and tune in to access that. So, really just separating from the content of whatever situation is presenting itself. So, this episode is really aimed at creating that perspective flip, really seeing every place in our life as an invitation, a moment in time that is exactly where we need to be. Because we all have seasons in our life and cycles that we move through. We have cycles of productivity, of growth, of success, and then resetting, where we are brought into a full understanding of reality. And this is important because it also serves as a role in your life. So you can think of this time as kind of a winter part of your cycle. Another Stoicism quote by Seneca: No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity. So, just to really think about when we return to our barren state or our leveled state of checking in with ourselves and with our life, this is an opportunity for us to level up, to get to the next stage of ultimately what we want to design for ourselves with our truest intention. So right now, you're really being asked to look inward and say, where am I? Where should I be going? There's new information that is being brought in, and oftentimes things are kind of being put in order, purified. And this will bring about a reshaping of yourself. This is how we get to a higher level in our evolution in our life. And so much of this recognition is just dependent on our perspective. So we can recall that. We can recall that fact and come home to it, especially in moments we are encountering suffering. So being positive in response to this state is at first a choice. And after a while of repetition, then it becomes habit, then it becomes your default. So I wanted to start this episode by giving you an experiment to try out. Let's call it perspective flipping. You can change your lens in an instant. And both realities exist simultaneously. They're two sides of the same coin. It all comes down to the lens by which you approach the same information. For example, I am beautiful, I am ugly. Those two things you can flip between. The definitions are in your eye, therefore you can alternate instantly between them. This is a gift. This is a curse. That is the same thing. You can flip between those two definitions live in your head. We always have access to that flip in our frame at any given moment. No matter our mood, we have access to seeing whatever it is from another perspective. It's like moving into a corner of the room you're in and looking at it from the vantage point of the floor, seeing it from a new perspective. We can choose to do that with anything in our life. So, right now, if you are feeling low or self pitying about something, I invite you to try and find the flip side And you have to deliberately really conceptualize what the hidden gift is that is embedded in this situation. Like an example is, let's say you're going through a loss. Literally think through, like, what is the bright side of this circumstance? Sometimes it'll be very like creative and specific. Like, I just went through a loss in a grown-up way of a professional sort. And what it is shown me, the gift, the silver lining that I can see is that it's showing me that change was really needed. It's a big set of changes. And so this is the beginning of a new path that is filled with a lot of creative opportunity. So, really, the gift for me in this situation is to be in reality and not be blind, and really to be active in a state of moving toward new opportunity. But we really have to like think through those things and choose for the more positive interpretation. So this episode has some tools to look at your loss or your feeling of lowness or your winter as an opportunity for inquiry and also change. I think a lot of the time these resets come about in our life when we have lost a sense of reality or we have parted from reality and or we have a new shift in priorities. We are being called to align behind a new goal, or we're being called to a greater task. And that can feel like confrontational and sad, especially if we have momentum towards something else in our life. So if something has recently hit you, do not panic, do not reject it. Allow the change to wash over you. And with that, here's the episode. There are three parts: the what, the why, and the how, the tools. Part one, the what. Feeling of being low, of feeling lost, being leveled by something. Perhaps a new reality has sunk in and the ego is struggling. Maybe it signals the change or the loss of an identity. And even something that is great and amazing can bring about with it a sense of panic and loss. Like for a lot of people, it can be, a great milestone, like your kids are leaving for college or even becoming a parent for the first time. It's like there's this great inner conflict that comes about. Like you have conflicting drives. And when we're pulled so greatly towards something that is healthier or that we are desperately needed for, it also is difficult to lose something that had its own momentum and its own passion and love and time and identity. So these conflicts exist for us at different times in our life, like a conflict of love, a conflict of self and art, a loss of an identity, like as with a relationship. So if you are being enlisted in service of something greater, even if you are following your inner pull, it might be something that you have to process and mourn and really like take stock of what is going on inside. Like, what am I fighting or what am I feeling bad about? What am I feeling is like not as good for me, like in my self-definition. Our spiritual and our inner lives have a hierarchy, and we have to sometimes reorder those things and listen inward to our intuition to tell us like what the correct answer is for us. And oftentimes it'll be a little processing required, especially if it's like you used to be fully identified with something else and now you have to move something else to the top of that hierarchy. With all of that said, here is part two, the why. Well, it feels shitty, feels really intolerable to think of ourselves as less than. Some part of our ego is built upon the belief that we can be perfect and that any threat to that definition of like we could possibly be perfect feels like a threat that we cannot survive. And so this is like this kind of very bizarre built-in operating system that is pretty insane, right? It's like this default ceiling of like perfection and that you can and should be perfect. And then there's this like threat feeling of like the possibility of accepting that I'm not perfect or anything that makes me feel less than perfect is dangerous and I need to avoid it at all costs. It feels life-threatening, especially if you are a young person and you have less experience with the waves of self-definition. So I just want you to entertain and imagine for a moment, like, what if you absolutely can tolerate and move through all feelings of lowness? And like, think of these as little windows of opportunity. Like, for example, in high school, I had just a really obsessive fixation on a very specific beauty standard for myself. And as a kind of young 20s person, I thought to myself, could I possibly unhinge this belief? Could I possibly make space around this belief and me? And that became my goal, was like just to, like with a crowbar, kind of pry that off of my brain and myself, because it was haunting me like an obsession. So I asked, can I make space around this issue and take the importance out of it? Can I like mourn its loss and say goodbye to it? And can I instead react to this with curiosity? Can I possibly not be identified with this thing? And over time, what happened is I became capable of like a third person perspective on it. So it was no longer me and my self-worth. It was like this thing that's happening to me. So we can always move into an outside perspective on any particular fixation or definition we have of ourselves. And it starts with just recognizing that there's an issue, that there's something that's causing you an unhealthy amount of pain. And then B, like conscious effort toward this new place, whatever it is. For whatever it's worth, one thing I notice about people who fixate on their physical flaws or fixate on what they want to change about their physical flaws, like things like messing with your face, like in chemical ways, is like the more you do it, the more you only can see the things that are wrong. It's like you're training a model on that which needs to be fixed. So that just becomes the most dominant perspective you have. It distorts the baseline and we just start to hallucinate. So with things like that, the solve, and with all sorts of kinds of negativity, the solve comes down to breaking up with the thought process itself. So, with that, here's part three, the how, the tools. But first, a brief word from our sponsors. Okay. The first tool is called lack scanning. We are always going to be sensitive to and internalize and react to whatever we are focused on in our lack. So, this tool is just like to become really aware of that's an open wound right now. Keep it safe from the wind, but know that it's only this way for right now. If you're feeling sensitivity around something very specific to you, that is a little map to something that needs healing and love and attention and processing in your person. Like your brain is always going to be trained on the thing you feel is lacking. For example, for some people, it's being single. For some people, it's their body. For some people, it's their lack of funds. It's all different for every single person and it will change throughout your life. So if you notice like, ouch, that stings, you're so hyper focused on something. It's just a little tiny invitation. You can flip it over and say, how can I give myself some compassion and perspective on why this stings for me right now? And like, remember that it's a process I'm moving through. Okay. The next tool related, the mantra I used in my scenario I talked about earlier with like body and beauty. Can I make space in my heart for this? If something hurts you a lot, if you're oversensitive to something like, oh, my friend gets hit on more than me, I don't know, whatever the thing is you're getting stung by, as soon as you notice it, it feels like the ego computer's thing, like, I cannot be less than, I cannot be less than, I must be perfect. So it's like, as soon as you notice that response, it's a little meditation. Can I make space in my heart for this? Can I just allow this to exist and for it to be okay? For me to survive this feeling and not think of it as so important, so injurious, so life-threatening. It doesn't mean that the thing is true. It just means that you're allowing it to just be and taking the severity out of it because the severity is something that our ego has manufactured and oftentimes it is actually comedically unimportant to us truly as a person. It's just like this like default kind of lizard brain response to it that makes it feel hyperbolically severe. Like I cannot tolerate this. I must define myself as opposite this. It's like maybe I actually don't care and don't believe this to be true at all. Maybe I can just take the importance out of it and step back from it and just see it for what it is, which is a random instance that my ego has found intolerable. My like lizard brain has found intolerable. All right, the next tool, counteractions. So this is a great way to teach your brain out of a similar type of response. If you are having a negative fill in the blank response to something like a woe is me or like a fuck them, how dare they, either kind of threatened ego kind of response to something, your brain is kind of doubling down on your rightness or your need to counter whatever has happened. Maybe it's a person did something, or you feel threatened by a situation, whatever it is. The way to teach ourselves out of that and to kind of grow out of that very petty response and to take the power out of that response and the hurt is to take what they call a counteraction. This is a 12-step tool. So, whatever your energy is feeling, you take an action in the opposite direction. So, you would demonstrate that you are fully in support of that person, or you would demonstrate that you fully are okay and loving in whatever situation has made you feel angry. So just really recognize in your body when you're collapsing into self-pity and you deliberately take the opposite action as a means to heal from it. And it's not easy. It is absolutely in the moment, it'll be in your body. Your body wants to feel it and wants to stay addicted to it. This is our way of overcoming it by force. All right. Next tool is called the addictive invitation of victimhood. Kind of similar to the last tool. When you are in that, starting to follow that train of thought of victimhood, of I am so hurt or I am so wronged and I'm so, whatever the story is, like there's a very specific moment, the beginning of a story that is going to be the invitation for us to feel all sorts of negative feelings and be like wallowing. There's the beginning sentence of that novel. As soon as you notice it and you become aware, oh, my script is starting, you have to take action in that very moment to say, I'm replacing it. I am choosing to not follow the script and I'm replacing it with something that is neutral. For example, mine is usually, maybe I don't feel like that at all. Maybe this is just fine. Remember when I was just fine yesterday and the day before that? Maybe I'm just fine right now as well. It's important to do it at the very beginning of a feeling, and we can definitely jump out of an action and a following set of feelings that could last a very long time. All right, the next tool, a gratitude glow up. This is a journal reflection. When you are journaling, the next time you journal, I invite you to look back at your week and just list out your highlights, write them in detail. Second to that, I invite you to write your kindnesses list. And by that, I mean, what did people gift you during your week that was so loving and so supportive? And I bet there are quite a few. It's like we often forget the casual ones, but like if you have loving and supportive people in your life, you're rich. I mean, that is awesome. It is huge. It is so life affirming to have those people. Just like jot down a few instances of people in your life from the last 7 days. All right, the next tool, the game of Frogger. This is just a frame for you to take on and use if it helps you. Never forget, life is just like that game Frogger. You have to wait for, I don't know if you've seen it before, Google it if you have not. It's like an 8-bit game where you're trying to, like the frog trying to cross the street and waiting for all these like windows to open up in traffic. Life is just like that. And if you're headed towards something and it's taking a really long time and you're getting really frustrated, like you're waiting for the next opening. It's just going to take a long time, especially if it's unique. Do not lose hope. Do not lose passion and focus on the goal. Just look at where you're headed and ask yourself, like, what do I need to add to my vision board? What are the new muscles I'm developing right now? What is the focus of my flame currently? How can I fan that? All right, the next tool, guidance from the past. This is a weird one, but I enjoy doing stuff like this because I like my dream work. If you are looking for insights into yourself, one way to journal about this and like make some headway is to think about figures in your memory. For example, from childhood, people who were important in your life or who had an influence on you in a foundational way. Imagine them in like active imagination, picture that person and ask them like, what do you have to teach me right now? Like, what is some insight that you can gift me into my situation currently? And just like imagine them and let them talk. They might give you advice that is insightful and comes from a place that you would not imagine. They can talk like as fully autonomous people. It's pretty cool if you really get in like a fully meditative state when you do this. All right. The next tool, stay in momentum. Know that it is sacred. And whenever you have something that you know you should do or could do that will keep up that force of momentum, know that it is really vital to success to keep them. Even if they feel small, even if they feel inconsequential, that is how you stay connected to your higher self. You have to keep your promises to yourself, whatever they are. So just like keep investing in them, even if you feel tired, even if you feel they're like unimportant or I don't really feel like it today, like keep that force moving in your life. All right, the next tool, another journal practice. This is called heading into the soar. One great way to really just like debunk I guess, the smallness of your own ego is to just go straight into the spot that feels sore with the goal of enlightenment. So if you're in a conflict, for example, you feel wronged by somebody else, you feel threatened by somebody else, you feel low. The journal prompt is, what got you here? What did I not see before? What can I own about me? And does the effort in any area feel one-sided? And what can I willingly accept as true? Like what am I trying to avoid? And what can I willingly accept as true? If that made sense. All right, the next tool, the enlightened or life-giving hospitality. I I think one thing that's great about being in a position like this in life is it gives us insight into ways that we can grow in the future when others need us and when others are in a low place themselves. Like we don't really see compassion and openness and kindness as like, a super high powered, successful trait necessarily. Like I feel like culturally it's almost disparaged. But it is so evolved and so powerful and profound for a person to be innately hospitable and kind and supportive to all others, including strangers. One thing that's really interested me recently is there there's this concept of like hospitality in olden times where there were like pockets of people and you had to travel very far to a new land and there's no such thing as a hotel. Hosp Hospitality was like the most vital thing to find in another set of human beings. Like your survival depended on hospitality from strangers. And so I think about that with like I was just thinking about my grandmother. She was so kind, so compassionate, and like giving to strangers, giving to like treated everybody like a family member. And I'm like, what made her that way? What got her to that soul evolution to get to that state of openness and love, constant stream of openness and love? So this tool is really like an invitation to look at what does this pain inform in you? And how can you look at this as an opportunity to evolve and be present for somebody else? And I think the second half of this tool is like, how can you be present for somebody else and be compassionate for somebody else? We all need someone else's compassion and hope, especially when we are down. So if you feel so inclined, this is a journal exercise. Think about one person who has been so kind, so hospitable to you, and think about a way that you might be inspired to bring that forth in yourself. Just become conscious of it. So, those are my tools. I hope they're helpful. In closing, I think one thing that can happen if we dip into scarcity and lack is we feel like the world's closing, like that there is no hope, there is no potential, but it's all an illusion. So I just wanted to remind you that we are all endless and bountiful as a default to our existence. We always have more love to give. And we have great ability to gift others with inspiration, with healing. So if you are feeling low and scarce today, this is just a gentle reminder to love for love's sake. Just think about that for a minute. I actually found a poem from my grandmother in my email, and it was Love for Love's Sake. It was Elizabeth Barrett Browning. I was going to read it, but I think I would butcher it. So if you want to read it, just Google it. But if you love for love's sake, just think about it. When you love another person, are you loving them so they will love you? Or are you really loving them simply because you do? So remember, love is just to love for the sake of the fact that you love something. Be loving and creative for your own sake. Never forget that today can be a whole new version of your life. Never forget that that 180 power exists at all times. Have you ever had a moment in your past when everything changed in an instant for the better? That exists. That potential exists on any day, including today. So just really come back to that reset of neutrality and ask, how do I get back to a comprehension of the world as fully possible? Stay focused on that. Expect nothing, expect good, expect all possible things to have a presence in your life. And I send you my love. Don't forget to smile.